Hey guys, welcome back to WrestleNews 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. Thank you very much for tuning in. From the top, before we get into the SummerSlam preview and predictions, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about SummerSlam. We're going to talk about the ThunderDome. We're going to talk about all the things you might not see coming. That's the tagline, isn't it? You'll never see it coming. That's the big thing with SummerSlam this year. So we'll talk about that in today's stream. Before we get there, though, if you haven't already, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out on YouTube, get up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds. So be sure to give this stream a like if you haven't already. And if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the stream or the videos or anything like that, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. And also today we are accepting donations. If you want to support WrestleNews 365, you can do that by going to streamlabs.com/WrestleNews 365. That's streamlabs.com/WrestleNews 365. Don't feel like you have to or anything like that. If you want to support the channel, that's the way to do it. Or you can go to our merch site, which is wn365merch.com. That's wn365merch.com, and that's the best way to support the channel. So SummerSlam. The ThunderDome, Sunday, the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. We got a taste of the ThunderDome experience last night on Friday Night SmackDown. The ThunderDome made its WWE debut last night on SmackDown. If you want to know my thoughts on that and my experience, I was briefly a part of the ThunderDome. I've gone back on SmackDown and I haven't seen myself in the crowd, so it's quite difficult to see, isn't it? And I noticed that when they were panning across the screens last night that were in the crowd, it kind of gets to like there's a little bit of like feedback or something like that. So it's very difficult to see yourself unless you're in the front row, a teddy bear, or asleep. I don't know if you've seen those things on social media. There was one guy that was asleep watching SmackDown and one that was a teddy bear. And I was watching that thinking, I got kicked. I got kicked from the stream. I got kicked from the stream for a teddy bear. I mean, I might as well just quit now. I'm less entertaining than a stuffed animal, right? Absolutely outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. But if you want to know my thoughts about that, I think I've put a link in the description box. If I haven't, you can go to the channel, see my ThunderDome experience and relive that there. But of course, SummerSlam Sunday is going to take place in the ThunderDome in the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. Quite a few matches on the card, and the card is ever-changing. Stipulations are changing. Even within the last half hour, we've had a change to one of the stipulation to one of the matches. So we'll get into that. We'll get into all the predictions, all the previews for the matches. So, first match, and I don't know if this is the exact order before people ask, this is just the order that I'm going to go in. First match is for the Raw Tag Team Championships, the Street Profits defending against Angel Garza and Andrade. Now, the storyline for this one has been the poisoning storyline on Raw, right? Montez Ford a couple of weeks ago, who was he facing? Was it Andrade? Or it might have been Angel Garza, one of them, it doesn't matter. Was facing him on Monday Night Raw, and then he's got his red cup. He's got his red solo cup that he's always drinking out of. We never know what's actually in the cup, right? I've always been under the impression that it's just water. Some people think it could be more, right? Some people think, it could be alcohol. It could be anything. Could be anything, right? Which, if that is the case, then, shame on you, Montez Ford. Stick away. Don't be drinking alcohol before matches. You're a champion. Come on. Who do you think you are? So he's drinking out of his red cup, and then obviously someone had poisoned or tainted what was in that cup, because as the match went on, he started to get more and more lightheaded, and eventually he passes out. And then the storyline on Raw in recent weeks has been, who poisoned Montez Ford? Who poisoned Montez Ford? That was the thing. And Bianca Belair was Montez Ford's wife, was very insistent that the person that indeed did poison Montez Ford was Zelina Vega or Andrade or Angel Garza or something like that. Zelina Vega absolutely denied it. No way was it her. She didn't poison Montez Ford. How could she? She would never do anything of the sort. And the funny thing about that is that it was exactly right. There was no real storyline here. It went exactly how you would expect it. So this past week on Monday Night Raw, Angelo Dawkins says, we've got a video so we can find out who did indeed poison Montez Ford. Samoa Joe, who has his sources in WWE. Apparently, he is not only a broadcast journalist or a contract signing extraordinaire, he also has sources inside the WWE Performance Center at the time. because he explained that because of Retribution causing chaos at the WWE Performance Center recently, they upped security, including putting a lot of CCTV cameras up. One such camera caught what appeared to be Zelina Vega putting something in Montez Ford's red cup. Now, you don't specifically see her do it. That's the most important thing I should stress there. You don't specifically see Zelina Vega pour something into the cup. You don't actually see that, but you do see her standing near it, have her back to camera. It looks like she's tampering with it. Now, there could be several reasons why we don't specifically see her putting stuff into the cup. One, I'm guessing maybe because PG. Is it PG to poison someone? No. So maybe they literally can't do it from that point of view. Or maybe they're trying to leave the element of doubt that maybe Zelina Vega, look, she actually didn't do it. It's a setup. I've seen some people say that maybe this is a setup by the likes of Angelo Dawkins to turn on Montez Ford. Look, I think Montez Ford could be a huge single star, and I think he will eventually be a huge single star. He's got so much charisma. He's great on the mic. He's athletic as all how. I think not since RVD have we seen someone be able to do a frog splash of that kind of height. It's absolutely insane. The guy's got springs in his heels. So maybe we will see a swerve. If not, just really strange storyline. Really strange storyline. He got poisoned. They said it was Zelina Vega, and it was Zelina Vega. I mean, pretty simple storytelling there, right? Very simple storytelling on that one. So very strange there. In terms of who do I think will win this one, look, the Street Profits have been the longest reigning Raw Tag Team Champions in company history, right? Since they were actually christened as the Raw Tag Team Championships back in 2016, no one's had a longer run with those titles than the Street Profits, which makes you think, well, maybe it's Andrade and Angel Garza's time to win it. This is one of those ones that it could really go either way. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if it goes either way. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if the Street Profits retain. I'm gonna lean towards the Street Profits retaining, but I wouldn't be surprised if they put the belts on Andrade and Garza. I prefer them not to be a tag team because I think they have a lot more going for them as single stars. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did the title switch here, just purely because the Street Profits have had the titles for a long time on Raw. To be honest, the Raw and the SmackDown and the NXT, to be honest, tag team division in WWE at the moment is just absolutely dead. I mean, it's very poor. I mean, we've had ups and downs with WWE's tag team divisions over the years. It's never been the same since really the Attitude Era in terms of great tag teams in WWE and tag team wrestling being taken seriously. But recently, it's just been a real low. That it's just not a focus in WWE at all. And yeah, I don't know why, but it's really not the case. It just, obviously, the powers that be in WWE aren't massive fans of tag team wrestling. Just ask the Revival, they'll tell you. So next, we have the WWE United States Championship on the line. We have United States Champion Apollo Crews defending against MVP. Of course, MVP's Hurt Business colleagues, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, will be banned from ringside. It's a weird one because this feud was very stop-start because of Apollo Crews testing positive for COVID-19. Obviously, that's the reason he wasn't at Extreme Rules, and he was off TV before Extreme Rules to hype up their match at Extreme Rules, and then the match had never happened, which was very strange. Of course, Apollo Crews did eventually return to Raw, defeated MVP, became the real United States Champion, got rid of the old United States Championship, but that night MVP was granted a rematch at SummerSlam, and that's what we're getting. MVP, you've got to give him credit for his work in 2020. He's had a phenomenal year for what was just meant to be a cameo appearance, followed by a retirement match and then a producer role. He's transitioned back into an on-screen role. He's just signed a multi-year contract with the company. He's a valuable asset to Monday Night Raw. His segments have been very good. His promos have been excellent. He's breathed life into the career of Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley right now is being booked the best that he has been since he returned to WWE, and I don't think that's just because of MVP, but I think the work that MVP's done in building up Bobby Lashley during the feud with Drew McIntyre at Backlash, etc., was a big proponent of that. So MVP has to be commended on that. Although I would suggest that, in my opinion, I think Apollo Crews should be facing Bobby Lashley instead at SummerSlam. Maybe they will get to that at some point, but MVP, for how great he's been on the mic, he is positioned as this manager that every time he wrestles, he loses. He very rarely wins matches. Only a couple of times has MVP won matches on Raw this year. So I don't expect to see any different here unless we have a new addition to the Hurt Business. That could potentially be the swerve here. Of course, Monday night on Raw, Apollo Crews could pick 2 tag team partners to face the Hurt Business in a tag team elimination match. Even then, MVP got eliminated, so it shows you MVP's chances of this match. But he had to choose out of Mustafa Ali, Ricochet, and Cedric Alexander, and he chose Ali. And Ricochet and Cedric Alexander, looked a bit PO'd of it. MVP went up to him later on in the show, said the offer's still there to join the Hurt Business. Cedric Alexander did actually win the 24/7 title later on in the show. Then he would lose it again. Who gives a crap about the 24/7 title at this point? It's just so redundant and such a nothing title that it's absolutely pointless. It really, really is absolutely pointless. So the only way that I see MVP winning this one, and I am going to go with MVP to win this one, but the only way I see him winning this is that Cedric Alexander joins the Hurt Business, which then leads to, because you have to factor in as well that SummerSlam is on Sunday, but the following Sunday is Payback, so there's another pay-per-view a week after SummerSlam, and we'll get into those reasons later on as to why, but I think this could be a title change that they then reverse at Payback, so I wouldn't be surprised if MVP wins on Sunday night to capture the United States Championship once again in his career, but it's because of outside interference from the newest Hurt Business member, that being Cedric Alexander. They have the rematch at Payback, and then Apollo Crews wins the United States Championship back there. So we have Women's Championship time. Now this is very, very interesting because things changed last night. So ASUKA is going to be challenging for both the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship in singles matches at SummerSlam. Now last night on SmackDown, there was the question about who is going to be facing Asuka first and who's going to be facing Asuka afterwards. Of course, whoever faces Asuka second has the best opportunity in retaining their title, right? Because Asuka's already gone for a match, she's already sustained punishment, etc., etc. It makes the most sense. So last night on SmackDown, we had a Beat the Clock Challenge series with Bayley and Sasha Banks. They went up against Naomi. And the person who was able to defeat Naomi the quickest would face Asuka second at SummerSlam. So Sasha Banks faced Naomi first, tapped her out in over 3 minutes, I think. And then Bayley was up next. But Bayley actually was defeated by Naomi. Bayley, Naomi, all these names coming out. And she was defeated by Naomi, so Bayley will be facing Asuka first at SummerSlam, which is very interesting as well because last night certainly planted a lot of seeds. We know, eventually Sasha Banks and Bayley are going to split up and they're going to have that match. I think that's still a way off. I think they'll save that until WrestleMania next year. But seeds are planted. Seeds are slowly being planted. So last night when Bayley lost to Naomi, Sasha Banks had the biggest grin on her face. It was ear to ear. She looked like the Fiend's mask. She was very, very happy that she was going to be facing Asuka second at SummerSlam. And then later on, Asuka would make her way to the ring. She kicked Sasha Banks right into the head. It was a brutal kick. It was actually on the entrance ramp. Kicks her in the head. Bayley realizes that she's left her SmackDown Women's Championship in the ring, goes and grabs the title, and then runs straight past her best friend. Sasha Banks just led down the entrance ramp. She's straight past her. So certainly seeds are being planted there. Seeds are certainly being planted there. But this is what I will say. I think that, and this kind of does the Raw and the SmackDown Women's Championship prediction at the same time, but I think that at least one Women's Championship is going to change hands at SummerSlam. However, I think Bayley, who faces Asuka first, will be the one to retain her SmackDown Women's Championship. Let's be honest, does it make any sense in the world to have a Raw superstar win the SmackDown Women's Championship? No. And I know the counter-argument to that is, well, there's a SmackDown Women's Championship, SmackDown woman holding the Raw Women's Championship. My response to that would be WWE doesn't care about the brand split. When is this idea of brand split ever going to change? I wish they could do a brand split, wow, and I wish they could do a hard brand split, but they won't. They can't. They physically can't. They do it for about a couple of weeks, then they start mixing the rosters again, then you start seeing wild card rules, then the ratings go down a little bit and they start panicking, and then suddenly everyone appears on both shows. You get loopholes, you get wild card rules, you get was it brand invitation or whatever. That's what they do. That's what they do. So I think Bayley is going to retain here. Maybe have some interference by Sasha Banks or something like that. We don't know, and I think it's important to stress as well, we don't know if these matches are going to follow one after the other. I doubt they will. I doubt we're going to have Bayley versus Asuka, and then once the match is done, we have Sasha Banks versus Asuka straight away. I doubt that we'll have that, but you never know. You never know. I would assume maybe you have one match open the show, so maybe Bayley versus Asuka opens the show, and then after the match, after Bayley retains, Bayley and Sasha Banks beat down Asuka. We have a bit of an injury angle. Or is Asuka going to make it back out later on in the evening? I think that's what they'll go to do with that one. Which then leads on, of course, to the Raw Women's Championship match as Raw Women's Champion Sasha Banks defends against Asuka 2. Now, I mentioned in the SmackDown Women's Championship prediction there with Bayley and Asuka that I think that Bayley will retain, and I think that they'll do a beatdown on Asuka and they'll hype up, is Asuka even going to be 100% when she faces Sasha Banks later on in the show? Asuka will overcome adversity, and I think this will then lead to Asuka becoming the Raw Women's Champion once again, and Sasha Banks can go back to being on SmackDown. We also know that next Sunday at Payback, Sasha Banks and Bayley will of course be defending their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships too. We don't know who that is against. There have been some rumours that it might be an NXT team. I saw this past week on NXT, we saw the team of Shotzi Blackheart and Rhea. Easy for me to say. I mean, it's only 5 o'clock over here, midday in the Eastern Time. I already can't speak. It's Shotzi Blackheart and Rhea Ripley. So potentially they could be defending against, they could be challenging rather for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see an NXT Tag Team win the Women's Tag Team Championship, because I think that then allows them to go on all of the brands, and that's a fun way to introduce an NXT talent to Raw and SmackDown, and also remind people that NXT is meant to be the equivalent of Raw and SmackDown. They've kind of forgotten that in this pandemic era. Around like Survivor Series time last year, where NXT dominated Raw and SmackDown, they gave the impression, okay, NXT is a credible third brand. That's just not been the case since then. They've kind of just disappeared from that point of view. So I think that it'd be a lot of fun to have an NXT team win the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. So hopefully it could be Shotzi Blackheart and Rhea Ripley. That'd be a really fun tag team, and it'd give Rhea Ripley something to do in NXT, considering, look, she was wrestling on WrestleMania this year, right? She was competing on WrestleMania. What's she be doing now? She's, fighting with Robert Stone and dyed her hair blonde. Wow, great, amazing. So do something different, please. Do something of substance. I know that we could use a Rhea Ripley on SmackDown at the moment, but I don't think she'll be called up. So, as I mentioned, I think Bayley will retain against Asuka in the first match, have an injury angle, and then we'll have Asuka defeat Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship later on in the evening. So next we have the street fights. This is one of the matches I'm really looking forward to. We have a street fight, Seth Rollins versus Dominik Mysterio. Dominik Mysterio making his in-ring WWE debut, his first ever match. We know that Murphy is going to be at ringside for Seth Rollins, and we also know that Rey Mysterio, Dominik's father, is going to be at ringside for Dominik Mysterio too. I've actually really enjoyed the Seth Rollins-Dominik Mysterio angle. I haven't, obviously, the eye for an eye thing at Extreme Rules, the horror show at Extreme Rules. The match itself, and I will say this over and over again because I think it's really important, the match itself at Extreme Rules was very, very good. Because Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio is always going to be a great match. They're two great in-ring performers. You can't discredit that at all. But even though that Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio is a great match, the finish was not good. And obviously the eye popping out, globe luxations, Seth Rollins vomiting, all of that sort of stuff, not good. And it wasn't, and that whole thing wasn't good, and we knew that wasn't going to be good. But since then, since you've added in Dominik Mysterio, he has done fantastic. He has really done fantastic. I think his work on the mic has been very good. I think his physicality that he's done has been very good. That segment a couple of weeks ago on Raw, when Seth Rollins and Murphy just beat the hell out of Dominik Mysterio, 30 shots with the kendo sticks. 30 shots with the kendo stick, just absolutely vicious, uncomfortable, made you feel emotions. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I thought Dominik Mysterio took the beating like an absolute champ, and it took what is an angle that some people might have been a bit tired of, and they might have felt that the Seth Rollins Rey Mysterio angle, because you've got to remember that's been going on since May now, and maybe fans were a bit tired of it, and the finish at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules was very hokey. People were a bit like, oh, do I really want to carry on with this Mysterio versus Rollins feud? But that angle took it up a level. That angle was great. That segment was great. As I mentioned, Dominik was just black and blue with bruises and welts and just looked like an absolute mess. But it was great. It was great. And some people I saw were very uncomfortable with it. And they were going, oh, it's terrible. How could you do that to him? You know, he's only a kid and he's just getting into the business and you're doing this sort of thing. It's an initiation on TV. Well, maybe it was a little bit of an initiation on TV. But the fact that you got so angry, the fact that you felt so uncomfortable and you wanted to turn away, that's brilliant. That's pro wrestling right there. Pro wrestling is meant to make you feel. Obviously, it's meant to tell stories and it's meant to entertain you, but ultimately, it's a television broadcast, it's entertainment, it's meant to make you feel. And that's what the case is with any television program, of any entertainment program. When you're watching Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or whatever, you're meant to feel. You're meant to empathize with the characters, sympathize with the characters. You're meant to get annoyed when the bad guy does something. You're meant to be happy when the good guys get a victory. That's entertainment. That's what pro wrestling is. It's meant to make you feel. And that's exactly what that segment did with Dominik Mysterio and Seth Rollins. It's exactly what it did. Now, this past Monday on Raw, Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio managed to get their own back. They had a setup where they attacked Murphy and Seth Rollins with kendo sticks themselves, tried to tie up Seth Rollins in the ropes. He managed to get out of the ropes. So they got their own back. I have no doubts that we're going to see a lot of bells and whistles in this match. Is it going to be an absolute technical classic? No. Dominik Mysterio is, 23 years old. He has been training for a couple of years. Every time we've seen him in a physical role, he's done really well, right? The Seth Rollins angle, when Rey Mysterio was facing Brock Lesnar, he took a beating from Brock Lesnar like an absolute champ. He was a bumping machine. The physicality we saw at the Survivor Series, hit with his dad, he did the double 619, he did the frog splash to his other dad, Eddie Guerrero. And, everything he's done so far is great. Is he going to be doing, an incredible catch-as-catch-can wrestling match here? No, because I think that's too much for Dominik right now. You've got Rey Mysterio at ringside. You've got Murphy at ringside. You can use weapons. There'll be kendo sticks. There'll be tables. There'll be chairs. They'll use smoke and mirrors, but I am very, very confident this is going to be a good match. I'm very excited to see how Dominik does. Look, this guy's going to be a third-generation wrestler, right? You've got Rey Mysterio Sr., you've got Rey Mysterio Jr., and now you've got Dominik Mysterio. That's a big burden, but Dominik Mysterio looks like he can hold up to it. And if there's anyone that's going to get you through the match, it's Seth Rollins. So what a big stage to make your debut. Remember, 15 years ago at this very event, Dominik Mysterio's custody was hanging above the ring between his two fathers, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. So it's funny how life works out. It's funny how fate works out. But I'm really excited about this one. I think this is going to be a match that a lot of people are going to be talking about, and I think it's going to be really fun. So I'm really looking forward to this one. In terms of a prediction for this one, I think Seth Rollins is going to win. I've seen some people suggesting that maybe Dominik Mysterio will win, obviously it being his first match. I don't think they will. Seth Rollins is still a main event player here, unless they literally have Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio team up against Seth Rollins. Maybe that's how Seth Rollins does the job here. But I think Seth Rollins will get the victory here because they'll just say, look, he's an inexperienced 23-year-old. Of course Seth Rollins is going to beat this kid, I think that's what they'll do there. But on the flip side of things, wouldn't be completely stunned if Seth Rollins does do the job here. I mean, you've got to tie up this story at some point. So maybe the Mysterios finally get the retribution they've been looking for Seth Rollins. Personally, I think Seth Rollins will win this one. I think then at Payback next week, you have the tag team match that Rey Mysterio's wanted, where you have Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio going up against Seth Rollins and Murphy, and then you get the Mysterios getting their victory, and in that match you don't have Seth Rollins taking the fall, you have Murphy taking the fall. I think that's probably the way that they'll probably go with that one. So I'm going to go with Seth Rollins winning this one, but I think we'll have some form of a tag match or a rematch or something along that nature at Payback next Sunday. So, Mandy Rose versus Sonya Deville. Now, again, this one, massive change last night on SmackDown. Originally, this was going to be a hair versus hair match, and I think a lot of people, myself included, were under the assumption it's hair versus hair. Sonya Deville is going to be shaved bald. It's going to be a fun match. Sonya Deville has been doing great recently. It will look great. That all changed, obviously, over the weekend with the incident that happened with Sonya Deville and the home invasion at her home. Horrible. It's just horrible. I spoke a bit about it briefly last night on the stream, on the ThunderDome stream, that I wasn't totally comfortable with them. I wouldn't say they made it into a storyline, but they certainly addressed it on SmackDown last night. You had Dana Brooke go up to Sonya Deville and say, "I'm sorry for everything that's happened to you. Are you okay?" And Sonya Deville just about slapped her face off. I mean, it was a brutal slap. It was a horrible slap. She looked like a total mafia boss. She was in her suit, slapped her face off, said, "Nothing I can't handle." I don't know if I want it to be brought up on WWE television, because this was a serious issue, right? A guy broke into Sonya Deville's home. He had messaged her thousands and thousands of times, very disturbing messages across social media. He broke into her home. He had a knife. He had zip ties. He had rope. He had all of this sort of stuff. I don't want that being brought up on WWE television. I don't want the psychos out there to think of, oh, if I break into someone's house, maybe I'll make it into WWE storylines and all of this sort of stuff. It's a very scary situation. Mandy Rose was actually in the house with Sonya Deville at the time, and I saw some people complaining about that. Oh, kayfabe, who cares? A guy entered their house with a knife. Like, forget storylines, okay? The most important thing here is that Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose were okay. That's the most important thing here. Thankfully, the alarm went off. Thankfully, they managed to get away, and the police apprehended this guy. He's been denied bail. Actually, yesterday, prior to SmackDown, Sonya Deville was in court as part of the bail hearing. This guy was denied bail. Hopefully, he's denied freedom, because it's just incredibly creepy. He's obviously got something wrong with him, in my opinion. And he just needs to be locked away. But it's a very, very scary experience, and it's got to be really traumatizing for Sonya and Mandy, and quite frankly, a lot of people on the roster, because I bet a lot of people on that roster get messages like that all the time. Being on television, being a celebrity, I bet you get those things, and you just ignore them, but you don't expect people to show up at your house and with knives and stuff like that. It's very, very scary. It's very, very disturbing, and my sympathies go out with, and I really do feel for Sonya Deville, because it's just a horrible situation. So earlier in the show on SmackDown last night, Mandy Rose cuts a promo on the camera and basically says, after everything that's gone on, she didn't really mean by the weekend, but she just means in the storyline, she wants to set things straight with Sonya Deville and go back to the way they used to be. Sonya Deville comes out, cuts a promo on the entrance ramp, says that's not going to happen, and says if anything, she wants to raise the stakes. She says that a hair versus hair match, there's no stakes there, because everyone knows that Sonya Deville wouldn't care if she gets her head shaved. Who cares? She says what she really cares about is getting rid of Mandy Rose from WWE altogether. So she changes the match from a hair versus hair match to a no disqualification, loser leaves WWE match. And when that happened, I just, my heart sank a little bit, because when that happened, I thought, I think Sonya's going away for a while, and I still do think that's the case. It's a shame, and Tom Collahu, great reporter, great guy, fellow Sportskeeda guy, released a story today on Sportskeeda, basically saying that the plan obviously was always to do the hair versus hair match. Obviously, plans changed over the weekend because of the incident, and they immediately reached out to Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville and asked them what they wanted to do about it. They said they could just drop the storyline, they can go back to being a tag team. They said they could continue with the hair versus hair match and continue like nothing has happened, or they can do the third option, which is looking like what they're going with, continue with the match, change the stipulation, and have Sonya Deville have some time off from WWE. And I think that is what they're going to do here. So prediction for me is that Sonya Deville is going to lose this one, and she's going to be away from the WWE for a short period of time. As to why, you can't blame her. Obviously, it's got to be incredibly psychologically scarring. She's obviously going to be busy now with all the trial stuff and ensuring that this guy doesn't see the light of day again, and it just sucks because Sonya Deville has absolutely hit her stride as a performer. She has been one of the breakout stars in SmackDown and just in WWE in general this year. She has been that good. Her promos have been great ever since they had the split from Mandy Rose. Her promos, her mannerisms, all of it have just been absolutely spectacular. So my hope is that they're just playing into an angle here, and maybe they'll find a way around it. Maybe Sonya Deville beats Mandy Rose, and then Sonya Deville says the only way that I reinstate Mandy Rose to WWE is if that Otis, you give me your Money in the Bank briefcase and I can challenge for a women's championship. Maybe they can do something like that, right? Unfortunately, I think it's more likely that Sonya Deville loses this one, and she'll be away from WWE for a while. I hope that it's not the case if she goes away and she never comes back. I don't think that'll be the case. But I think she'll go away, take some time, and then hopefully she can come back around Royal Rumble time or something like that. And when she does come back, whoa, she's going to be a big star. A massive star, because she's already hitting her stride. That's the most annoying thing about this. Apart from, obviously, the psychological damage and scarring, the most annoying thing in terms of business is that Sonya Deville has just been such a bright spot on SmackDown recently, and has just been so great. So great that it really sucks. Glenn Hunt says, WWE Team 18 versus Retribution Team 18 match news breaking on WWE.com SummerSlam tomorrow night. Is that the case? I can go and check on my phone now if that's the case. If you're ribbing me, Glenn, I'll be devastated. So let's check on. We'll go on to WWE's. Oh, the ThunderDome registered as open for Raw as well. I won't be registering for that. My experience last night was just, it wasn't amazing. I can't see that anywhere. So you ribbing me, Glenn? You ribbing me, Glenn? Because if that's the case, me and you got to fall out, brother. Let's check WWE.com. I mean, if it's not on their Twitter feed, then it's very unlikely. I can't see it there. You're ribbing me, Glenn. You're ribbing me. You made me look. How dare you? How dare you? So yeah, going back to the match, I think Mandy Rose wins this one, and Sonya Deville goes away for a while. Hopefully not, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. So Universal Championship match is next. Universal title. Now, Glenn, this is one that did get changed earlier, because we do have an update to this one. It's Braun Strowman versus The Fiend, but now it's been announced today on Talking Smack that it is actually Falls Count Anywhere. Which, to be honest, I think does actually help this match out. I think it does help this match out because traditional wrestling match between Braun Strowman and The Fiend wasn't going to open any eyes. I think the angle... This is very complex for me because this angle has been going on for a while. Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt has been going on a while, and it has evolved, in fairness. It has evolved. You had Braun Strowman versus Mr. Rogers, Firefly Funhouse Bray at Money in the Bank. He got beat convincingly, Bray Wyatt. And that match, I didn't really care for it. It was fine. Then you had the Wyatt Swamp fight at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules, and you had Braun Strowman going up against the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt, returning for the first time since, 2018. And that match was absolutely... I mean, they said it was the Horror Show at Extreme Rules. That match was horrific. I was not a fan. I was really not a fan. I just thought it was just terrible. I thought it was the worst cinematic match WWE have done. So wasn't a fan of that one. But I must say, now that The Fiend has re-emerged, he re-emerged at the Horror Show at Extreme Rules. Now that The Fiend has re-emerged, I must say that I think this part of the feud has been quite good. I say quite because there have been moments that I've not been a fan of. But Braun Strowman disappeared for a few weeks after The Fiend dragged him to the swamp at Extreme Rules. And then on the following episode of SmackDown, we had The Fiend attack Alexa Bliss, put the mandible claw on Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss had actually been a part of the Wyatt Swamp fight. She had been a vision, an incarnation of Sister Abigail trying to tempt Braun Strowman. They were obviously playing on the history between Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss from the Mixed Match Challenge and the Team Little Big or anything like that. So they were doing that. Tristan Morales says, hello, how you doing, Tristan? Hope you're doing well, mate. So The Fiend attacks Alexa Bliss, and then he looks like he's going to do it again the following week. But this time, Alexa Bliss strokes The Fiend's face, and The Fiend is confused. by some form of human contact, and that was, I think, the initial sign that we were going to see a bit of a double turn here. I've made a video on that on the channel as well, so be sure to check that out. And then the Braun Strowman, that's a good name, the Braun Strowman, the Strowman Express. Don't get me started on that. So Braun Strowman appears on the Titantron, says he doesn't care about Alexa Bliss. Braun Strowman returns the following week on SmackDown, and he's bold. He looks like Gene Snitsky mixed with Eric Rowan. For one moment, I thought Eric Rowan had just dyed his beard, and he wasn't ginger anymore. So we had Braun Strowman shave his head. Alexa Bliss confronts him, said, "Why do you say you don't care about me? I thought we had something, you know." Earlier in the night, Alexa Bliss had done an interview talking about her relationship with Strowman. The guy who was interviewing her asked if it could be romantic, and she went, "Oh, you know, maybe." So that's no. If a tip out there, any guys that are listening, if you ever get that, well, you never know. It's usually a no. It's usually a no. So, she confronts him and says, "Why did you say those things?" Braun explains to her, "Anyone the Fiend touches has changed. Look at Braun Strowman, right? The Fiend touched him, his hair fell out. So that or chemicals in the white swamp. So be careful, Braun." So in the end, it remains with Braun lifting up Alexa Bliss, throwing her in the air, and as he throws her in the air, the lights come out. Braun Strowman disappears. Fiend is there to, I guess, rescue Alexa Bliss, maybe. And that was, in my opinion, the start of the double turn. And then we saw the same on SmackDown last night. You had Vince McMahon open up the ThunderDome in his traditional way. Last time I did a Vince McMahon impression, I sounded like The Undertaker. I'll try it again. "Welcome to the ThunderDome." I say again, it's The Undertaker. I can't do a Vince McMahon. Unfortunately, I can't do a Vince McMahon. So we had Vince McMahon open up SmackDown, welcome us to the ThunderDome. The Fiend interrupted him, which I enjoyed. Vince McMahon didn't look scared at all. I guess once you've faced the federal government, the Fiend is nothing. So, but he doesn't get any interaction with Vince McMahon because out comes Strowman. Strowman and the Fiend face off. Retribution get involved. The Fiend disappears. That wasn't really the big angle. The angle was later on in the show. We had a Firefly Funhouse episode. Bray Wyatt's there. Mr. Rogers Bray is chatting. And then suddenly, he goes, he like sniffs and he goes, "What took you so long?" He can smell Braun Strowman. How smelly must Braun Strowman be if Bray Wyatt can smell him from a mile away? Unless Mr. Rogers' like secret power is that he's got superhuman sniffing or smell, this was incredible. This was absolutely outrageous. So Braun Strowman attacks Bray Wyatt. They brawl backstage, and then Braun Strowman choke slams Bray Wyatt onto the concrete on the outside. Hated that spot because it just looks rubbish. Because it can never be shot properly. It's always you chuck him out and you never see him land, and you just go, "Oh, okay." So you knew where this was going. They put Bray on a stretcher, put him into an ambulance. The ambulance goes forth, comes back, and then out of the ambulance comes the Fiend. He's here. And that was shot really well. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed the reactions of the officials. And then they zoom in and the Fiend sticks his tongue out. And I just about exploded with laughter. Oh my. When he stuck his tongue out, I could not stop laughing. It is the funniest thing I think I've seen. And it wasn't meant to be funny, but it was funny. It was really funny. And that's how they went off the air for that one. No Alexa Bliss last night on SmackDown, which was interesting. They referenced her a lot, but no actual Alexa Bliss appearance. I think she will get involved. She's going to side with either Braun Strowman or The Fiend, without a doubt. I think we're getting a double turn. I think Braun Strowman is now going to be the heel, and The Fiend is going to be the babyface here. A lot of people aren't happy that The Fiend is going to be a babyface, and I really don't have a problem with it. They go, how could someone like The Fiend be called a babyface? Well, how could someone like The Undertaker be a babyface? The Undertaker was literally a guy who was dead. He's a zombie. He buries people. He puts people in coffins. He's got Paul Bearer screaming. And this guy's the biggest babyface, arguably one of the biggest babyfaces in WWE history. Come on. Okay? The Fiend is a popular character. He's a very, very popular character. Like the best heels in any WWE, pro wrestling, or any movies. The heels always become good guys in the end. The biggest villains become good guys in the end. Darth Vader, what happens? He becomes a good guy in the end. right? That's how these things work. The Terminator, what happens? He becomes a good guy in the end. If you're that good of a villain, you become a good guy because people like you. People want to cheer for you because you're cool. That's the same with the Fiend. He is cool. His merchandise does unbelievably well. His reactions are unbelievable well. His look is incredible. And Braun Strowman, quite frankly, as Universal Champion, has been about as exciting as a fart in church. So I don't have any problem with the double turn here. But I think Alexa Bliss is going to side with someone. And some people are speculating that maybe this has all been a ruse by Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss. But I don't think that's going to be the case. My prediction is that Bray Wyatt is going to win and become the Universal Champion again. I think he should. He's the guy on SmackDown that, in this feud especially, should be the Universal Champion. There aren't many good options to be Universal Champion on SmackDown right now. But I'd probably say The Fiend, AJ Styles, and then you could maybe put the title on Jeff Hardy if you wanted to. That's about it. There isn't a lot of options there on SmackDown. So I think you put the title on The Fiend, and maybe they turn him babyface. Again, I don't have a problem with it. But I think Alexa Bliss is going to be involved heavily in this, and she's going to side with either Braun Strowman or The Fiend. I hope that she sides with The Fiend, and that The Fiend did truly change her, and we have this... I don't want to say, Alexa Bliss' sister Abigail, because that whole point has become so overdone and over-talked about in the history of Bray Wyatt at this point. I don't think there's ever any plan for anyone to be Sister Abigail, but I like the idea of The Fiend and Alexa Bliss somehow being paired up. So I think The Fiend is going to win this one. I think because it's Falls Count Anywhere, potentially, I don't think this is going to be completely cinematic, but I think the fact that it is Falls Count Anywhere, we're going to see some cinematic elements of it. So we might actually cycle through a few Bray Wyatt characters. We might see Firefly Funhouse Bray. We might see... the Eater of Worlds Bray. We'll see The Fiend, obviously. And also an interesting point, you have to remember that Bray Wyatt won his first Universal Championship from Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel last year. What was the match type? It was Falls Count Anywhere. Keep that in mind, because I think the second Universal Championship in Bray Wyatt's career is also going to be a Falls Count Anywhere match. Tristan says, I say The Fiend wins because The Fiend can't lose and Braun Strowman is boring as champion. I don't disagree with that. They're really making The Fiend look like a good guy here. When Braun was attacking Bray, they're making Braun look like the bad guy. I agree. I think it's a double turn. And I think The Fiend is slowly becoming a babyface and Braun is becoming a heel. And I don't have a problem with it. I really don't have a problem with it. So main event, the WWE Championship. We have Drew McIntyre defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton. This feud is interesting. I've done a preview on this on the channel, so be sure to check that out. This one is interesting because I don't want to say I think that this feud has left a bit to be desired. What I will say is this feud has been less about, for me, Drew McIntyre and all about Randy Orton. Randy Orton has been the guy for me in 2020. He is the real MVP of WWE in 2020. Nobody can touch Randy Orton. They can't. Nobody has had the year that Randy Orton has had. Even before all of the Edge stuff, he had a great segment with AJ Styles, fake retirement angle on Raw. That was great. And then think of the year that he's had. Ever since he turned on Edge the night after the Royal Rumble, there has not been a better heel in the WWE or in professional wrestling in general. Randy Orton is the top of the list. He has just been that good. He has the turn on Edge. Then he has the attacks on Matt Hardy. Then he RKO's Beth Phoenix. Then he has the match with Edge at WrestleMania, followed by the match at Backlash. The greatest wrestling match ever, was it? No, it never was going to be, because there's no such thing as the greatest wrestling match ever, because that's subjective. No one will ever unanimously agree on the greatest wrestling match ever. So it was never going to be that. Was it a good wrestling match? Was it a great wrestling match? How yes. I really enjoyed that match. I thought they did great, and it was great to see Edge back in the ring doing a normal wrestling match as opposed to a gimmick match. So really enjoyed that. Obviously sucked about the injury, but Randy Orton got the victory there. The plan was, of course, to have Edge Orton 3 at SummerSlam. That obviously hasn't happened because Edge's injury. The plan was also to have McIntyre versus Lesnar for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. That hasn't happened due to the pandemic. Maybe we could see Brock return soon. Now they're back in the Amway Center. We'll have to wait and see. But again, so he takes out Edge. The following night on Raw, after he's injured Edge, torn his triceps and kicked him in the skull. Who does he take out next? Christian. Kicks a guy with concussion history in the head. He's gone. Who does he face next? The Big Show. Unsanctioned match. What does he do? Kick him in the head. He's gone. During this whole period of time, he's being mentored by Ric Flair, and Ric Flair's in his corner. What happens to Ric Flair next? Randy Orton turns his back on him, kicks him in the head. He's gone. Shawn Michaels this past week on Monday Night Raw, RKO's and kicks him in the head. Shawn Michaels apparently fine, which was annoying. He didn't sell it at all. It was very, very strange. Very, very strange. I don't blame Shawn completely for it, because I think in reality, Shawn had to get up for McIntyre to be distracted, for McIntyre to get RKO'd by Randy Orton. So, but I still think Shawn could have done a better job there. But my point being, nobody can touch Randy Orton. Nobody can touch Randy Orton. And Drew McIntyre, look, Drew McIntyre has done great. He really has done great, and I really do sympathise with him, because it sucks. It sucks. This guy is still over. The fans still like him. He's done a great job considering the circumstances of being WWE champion. He has never been the WWE champion in front of a paying audience, and he's been the champion for over 100 days. That would never usually happen. It would never usually happen. And I really do sympathise for him, because he got his big WrestleMania moment in front of 0 fans. It sucks. It sucks. It really does suck for him. But I don't think this is going to be his only WWE Championship reign in his career. And in any other circumstance, I would say McIntyre retains easy. Have him win, keep winning, build up McIntyre. He's going to be the next big star in the company. He's WWE Champion. He can be the next big face. Usually I would say that, but this is a different situation here, because for me, Randy Orton, you can't go against him. He has just been that good. Nobody can touch Randy Orton. His matches, his promos at the moment are just on another level. His promos are just on another level. They are really that good. So you can't go against him. And I think Randy Orton is going to leave SummerSlam as the WWE champion. I really do. That's because I think he's just been that good. Now, of course, there have been rumours that Randy Orton could be facing Edge at WrestleMania. They're going to have the final match in their trilogy, and that match could indeed be for the WWE Championship. Dave Meltzer said that it could be an I Quit match, so maybe we get Randy Orton versus Edge at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. Now, do I think that Randy Orton versus Edge needs the WWE Championship? No, it doesn't. And to be honest, I'd rather not have the WWE Championship in that match. Would it be cool to see Edge become champion once again? Of course it would. Of course it would. This guy was out of the ring for 9 years, medically disqualified. The chances of him coming back were just non-existent. It was never going to happen. Edge coming back, that was never going to happen. And he came back and he's had a couple of good matches. His promos have been great. Would it be cool to see Edge as champion? Yes. How long would that last? I have no idea. Not very long, because he's not contracted to many appearances throughout the year. His body can't take it. So, does the match need it? No, it doesn't. Edge versus Randy Orton once again in an I Quit match sells itself. So I don't think that's the reason to give Randy Orton the WWE title here. I think the reason to give Randy Orton the WWE title here is because there's nobody better on Monday Night Raw right now than Randy Orton. Nobody. Nobody's a bigger star. Nobody's doing better work. Nobody. And you can have Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, going back and forth for the remainder of the year, and I think that would do great too. I really do. And again, I sympathise with Drew McIntyre because his first title runs come during a pandemic. But in credit to him, and this is a massive credit to him that I must say, he still has the good faith of the fans. And I know I mention this a lot, but it's very, very true. Look at the guys they've tried to make WWE champion and try and elevate him to a next level, especially the babyfaces, right? Roman Reigns, I sympathise to him with a point, because he was just booked horrendously, and he always has been booked horrendously. If you let Roman Reigns be Roman Reigns, he's one of the coolest guys. Just if you see him in normal interviews, he's one of the coolest guys, and he has the respect of so many people backstage because he's a cool guy. Yet they give him corny lines, they give him ridiculous dialogue and stupid storylines, and it makes the fans turn against him. But Roman Reigns, his work in the ring is actually really good, really, really good. And he's a great guy backstage. It's John Cena. He's a very close guy to a John Cena that, for some reason, people think Roman can't work. He can. And people think that he's not this cool guy, but he just gets given terrible promos and terrible dialogue. But he is a great guy. But because of the nature of his push, WWE fans turned against him. They tried it with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins' downfall, I think, was more on him as opposed to the booking. The booking of him was very, very poor too. You win the Universal title, then you're called the man's man on television most weeks, and you're feuding with the likes of King Corbin. That went wow, didn't it? So the fans turned against him, and again, that was partially Seth Rollins, because at the time he was tweeting all kinds of nonsense too, but the fans lost faith. Drew McIntyre has had a much more difficult set of circumstances than both of those guys, and the fans still like him. The fans are still with him. They have faith in him. So again, I sympathise with him, but ultimately, I think Randy Orton is going to leave this one as the WWE champion, and I think that that needs to be the case. I wonder who his next opponents could be after this, after he becomes WWE champions, because the baby faces on Raw are not credible. Maybe a Kevin Owens Randy Orton feud would be fun for the WWE title. That would be cool. Aleister Black should be much higher up than he is already. Maybe they can do something like that. Maybe even Rey Mysterio once again. Who knows? That could be a lot of fun too. But we know we're going to get a draft soon as well. So I think maybe they can switch some things around there too. But I think Randy Orton is going to leave here the WWE champion. So that's the SummerSlam preview and predictions. If you've enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. The more likes we receive, it really does help us out here on YouTube. We go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds. So if you haven't already, please do smash a like on the like button. You can also, if you want to support the channel, you can donate to WrestleNews 365. Go to streamlabs.com/WrestleNews 365. We're accepting PayPal donations there. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll have the super chat function, but this is just another way of doing it before we get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you want to support the channel in any little way, it's greatly appreciated. We don't have a Patreon or anything like that at the moment, so if you want to support the channel, this is the way to do it. So you can donate at streamlabs.com/WrestleNews 365. If you haven't already, also, you can subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Let's do a live check on how many subscribers we are away. Our aim is to get to 700 subscribers during SummerSlam weekend. So obviously SummerSlam is tomorrow. So let's check our subscriber count at the moment. We are on 695 subscribers. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. Bottom right hand corner of the screen, or go to the channel and subscribe there. Aim is to get to 700 subscribers on SummerSlam weekend, and then obviously the long term aim is to get to 1,000. Once we get to 1,000, we'll be doing a lot more live streams, reactions, watch alongs, all of that fun stuff. I'm trying to sort of do more streams a lot recently, so if you do enjoy it, please do subscribe, and then you won't be able to miss a future stream or anything like that. I will be going live later tonight after NXT TakeOver for NXT TakeOver reactions. I'll be doing the same for SummerSlam tomorrow. SummerSlam reactions will also go live at midday to do another preview. So if you subscribe, you won't miss any of that. We're doing lots and lots of content on the channel so far, so be sure to subscribe and you won't be able to miss a thing. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. The handles are on the screen right now. The links are in the description box below. It's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. So be sure to give us a like or a follow there. As I mentioned with the donations too, that donation link is always open. So if you want to support the channel, you can do that. That link is always open. Streamlabs.com/WrestleNews365. You can also support the channel by buying our merch as well. If you just type in WN365merch.com, that's WN365merch.com. You'll be taken to our merch store and you can purchase a WrestleNews 365 shirt. We've got a couple of designs up there at the moment. If you are interested in purchasing some merchandise, you can go there, but we will also be adding some new merch there soon, so be sure to keep visiting there and check that out. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again